You guys may have seen this, but Donald Trump has been trying to separate himself from Project 2025. He tweeted out, "I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them." And people immediately debunked this. They were saying, this is top Trump aide Russ Vought, one of the authors of Project 2025. He is also in charge of the Republican Party's platform committee. Yes, the same person writing Project 2025 is writing the GOP or Trump's GOP platform, and we're about to read this platform. But yeah, Trump lied for multiple reasons. Also, keep in mind that Donald Trump enacted 64% of the Heritage Foundation's policy prescriptions during his first term, so he is absolutely lying. He's running defense, and the GOP decided that it might be a good idea to try to moderate, try to distance themselves from Project 2025 by releasing this new 2024 GOP platform, Make America Great Again. And this platform is absolutely and totally ridiculous for a few reasons. Dedication to the forgotten men and women of America. A return to common sense. We can read that in 1 second, but what I want to highlight here is that all of their chapter names are written like manic Trump tweets. In all caps, seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. Just some insane stuff. I mean, we can go through and debunk some of these titles. First of all, America was built on immigration. Stopping the migrant invasion is an insane way to talk about immigrants coming over here for a better life. Carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. We've broken down the problem with that a few times. Republicans want to deport 11 million immigrants, but there are a few problems. Number one, how do you deport 11 million people in a nonviolent way? Number two, how do you not accidentally deport American citizens in the process? And number three, this would tank our economy. It would absolutely tank our economy. Deporting 11 million people, it's not even possible. Number 7 is wild. Defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms. You guys are championing the guy who wanted to terminate the rules, laws, and regulations in the Constitution. Trump put that on Truth Social. You guys are championing the guy who tried to overthrow the results of an election. Even number 6 is crazy. Large tax cuts for workers. By workers, do you mean the top 1% of the top 1% like you did in your first term? Number 8, prevent World War III. Restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East. The idea that Trump would prevent World War III, he's one of the most impulsive people in the world. And the fact that number 17 is even on this list is crazy to me. Keep men out of women's sports is in their list of top 20 things that needs to be done in America. Deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. How do you define a pro-Hamas radical? Are you just going to deport all pro-Palestinian protesters? That is absolutely wild. Like, I hate Hamas as much as the next person, but I definitely wouldn't say deport. Deport anyone for expressing their opinion. That's their First Amendment right. And then again, all caps titles, defeat inflation, quickly bring down all prices. We have the lowest inflation in the world. Inflation sucks for everybody, but if it was this easy, defeat inflation, I think we would have done it. Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Build the greatest economy in history. All right, all the stuff that we've already read. So let's go through some of these. We don't even have to go through every single one, but I think it's worth going through the GOP's 2024 platform and just debunking some of these talking points. The Republican Party will reverse the worst inflation crisis in 4 years that has crushed the middle class, devastated family budgets, and pushed the dream of homeownership out of reach for millions. Okay, first of all, a lot of this inflation was a direct result of Donald Trump's wild deficit spending, and I know that we needed to spend for COVID, but the idea that you can say that this is all Joe Biden's fault. Number 2, inflation has cooled down. We have historically low inflation numbers. Actually, we have the lowest inflation in the world, and I'm not saying that to undermine people's lived experiences. I know inflation sucks, but prices aren't going back down. That is called deflation. All you can ask for is that real wage growth outpaces the growth of inflation, and that's happening right now for the first time in a while. People are making a historic amount of money. When foreigners think of America, they think of one of the richest countries with the richest people. Also, their plan is absolutely BS to increase tariffs, which is just increasing taxes that will far outweigh any tax cut. Okay, let's keep going. Unleash American energy. Under President Trump, the U.S. became the #1 producer of oil and natural gas in the world. And we will soon be again. But isn't Joe Biden also producing? Are we producing record amounts of oil right now? We're breaking the record. The EIA confirms historic U.S. oil production record. We've been hitting new records for years. United States produces more crude oil than any country ever. And this was March 11th, 2024. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but these are just... So this is what the entire GOP platform is. I'm just going to guess right now. It's going to be these incredibly vague prescriptions with no actual path on how to get here. So they're going to say, oh, we need to end inflation. We need to stabilize the economy, but there's not going to be a step-by-step guide, which is what you need. So under President Trump, the U.S. became the #1 producer of oil and natural gas in the world. Let me just point out that was because we were continuing the trend from the Obama administration, and we've still been continuing that trend. They say, and we will be soon again. We already are. We're already hitting historic numbers by lifting restrictions on American energy production and terminating the socialist Green New Deal. I might be wrong, but the Green New Deal was never enacted. No part of the Green New Deal was ever enacted by terminating the socialist Green New Deal. So again, these are just vague platitudes. What restrictions are you going to lift? Number one. Number two, you're going to terminate something that doesn't exist. Republicans will unleash energy production from all sources, including nuclear, to immediately slash inflation and power American homes, cars, and factories with reliable, abundant, and affordable energy. It sounds great. Oh yeah, of course we want to have abundant, affordable energy, but how are you going to get there? They don't say how we're going to get there. And we are producing, so like, again, it's going to be so vague. Rein in wasteful federal spending. Republicans will immediately stabilize the economy by slashing wasteful government spending and promoting economic growth. This has to be a joke. Donald Trump increased the deficit by 2 times the amount that Joe Biden increased it by. Donald Trump increased the deficit by $8 trillion. Joe Biden's was roughly $4 trillion, literally double the amount. So when they say slashing wasteful government spending, they're going to slash programs like Social Security, all of these social welfare programs that help people at the bottom, while at the same time cutting taxes for people at the top, just increasing the wealth gap. That is all Republicans want to do, and rather than actually lay out a step-by-step guide, they just have vague platitudes. Like I said, terminate the socialist Green New Deal. It's just BS. Cut costly and burdensome regulations. Republicans will reinstate President Trump's deregulation policies, which saved Americans $11,000 per household, and end Democrats' regulatory onslaught that disproportionately harms low and middle income households. I don't even think that's true. Trump versus Biden. Who got more done on regulation? Trump launched a massive deregulation campaign that largely failed. Biden has effectively used rulemaking to advance his priorities. When it comes to federal regulations, Democratic and Republican presidents are judged by different standards. The former are expected to use federal regulations vigorously to advance liberal goals such as protecting the environment and the rights of workers. The latter are supposed to take an axe to federal regulations. Neither task is especially easy. All in all, the Trump administration's inexperience and sloppiness in rulemaking led an overwhelming number of its actions to be overturned in court. Biden, meanwhile, has had far more success promoting his agenda through regulations. But Biden's accomplishments will be in jeopardy if he loses this fall, thanks to one lasting victory that Trump did achieve, appointing 3 justices to the Supreme Court. Since then, in a series of precedent-breaking decisions, the Supreme Court's conservative supermajority has begun an assault on the foundations of the administrative state. Regardless of who wins the election, we can expect to see the next president pursue a similar agenda with a similar level of competence. A year into his presidency, Trump proclaimed with typical bombast that he had launched, quote, the most far-reaching regulatory reform in American history. That's always what he says. He said in the Roosevelt Room of the White House, just before using an oversized pair of scissors to cut through red tape. Trump's attempts to cut red tape were significantly hindered by his administration's unfamiliarity with the ponderous bureaucratic processes that govern regulations. Federal rulemaking is a lengthy process that involves public comment, congressional administrative review, and ultimately oversight from courts. To get rid of a regulation is similarly onerous. Unless it happens within the 60-day time window. So basically they're saying that Trump's entire administration was so damn incompetent, they couldn't even pass anything when it came to regulation, where Joe Biden, his experience in the government allowed him to far outpass Donald Trump's. Oh, is Biden speaking at the NATO summit? Sorry, I was waiting for him to hop on. Stop illegal immigration. We'll break that down in a bit. Restore peace through strength. War breeds inflation while geopolitical stability brings price stability. Republicans will end the global chaos and restore peace through strength. What Republicans always try to do is say that they believe in peace through strength because that's what Ronald Reagan believed in. But President Biden has been incredibly strong. He's been showing people like Xi Jinping, people like Vladimir Putin, that we use hard power to protect sovereign nations. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wants to cede Ukrainian land to Russia, and he calls that peace through strength. Just because you achieve peace by ceding land doesn't mean you're strong. That's actually a show of weakness. Republicans offer an aggressive plan to stop the open border policies, wrong, the border is not open whatsoever, that have opened the floodgates to a tidal wave of illegal aliens, deadly drugs, and migrant crime. Why do they capitalize some of this stuff like it's like a big event? We will end the invasion at the southern border. There's no invasion. Restore law and order. You're nominating a convicted felon. Protect American sovereignty and deliver a safe and prosperous future for all Americans. Secure the border. Republicans will restore every border policy of the Trump administration. Were there any border policies that Biden immediately repealed? I don't think so, number one. Number two, we had a border bill. Let's break down what this border bill had, because it was so perfect. Or it wasn't perfect, but it was such a step in the right direction. The number of unauthorized immigrants crossing the border keeps reaching record highs. The backlog of cases in U.S. immigration has soared past 3 million. People trying to immigrate legally to the U.S. face a maze of bureaucracy. A group of bipartisan senators, what's up, Bethany, and White House officials say they've negotiated a deal that would solve some of these problems. If passed, the measure would amount to some of the most significant changes in U.S. immigration policy in decades. That's certainly a big if. While President Joe Biden has said he'll pass the legislation, former President Donald Trump is pushing GOP lawmakers not to pass it. And House Republican leaders have called it dead on arrival, even if it clears the Senate. Still, this is a moment when it's important to pay attention. What's proposed? Once illegal border crossings reach a certain threshold, the Department of Homeland Security would be required to exercise a new emergency authority that bars migrants, except unaccompanied minors, from crossing the border between ports of entry. The authority would automatically kick in if crossings rise above 5,000 on average per day on a given week, or 8,500 in a single day. Republicans give the argument that essentially there was a threshold of 5,000 minimum immigrants that could pass, and that's what the bill promoted. It promoted 5,000 people passing a day, but the thing is, it promotes a threshold where after 5,000, the authority automatically kicks in to stop the crossings after 5K. Major changes to Asylum. Asylum officers from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services will decide on the asylum cases of migrants at the border. The legal standard of proof for passing an initial screening will be higher, and those applying will also have to prove they could not have moved to another part of their country to avoid persecution. Those who pass initial asylum screenings will immediately be eligible for work permits. Those who don't pass the screenings can appeal to an asylum review board. See, here's the thing. If Joe Biden got into office, whether he wanted to whether he wanted to cut regulations or enforce more regulations, whether he wanted to do either of those, he would have been able to do it effectively because Joe Biden knows how to maneuver through the government. He knows how to be an effective leader. He knows how to bring people over from the other side. So either way, no matter which side Joe Biden fell on, no matter what he wanted to do, he would have been fine. He would have gotten it done. Donald Trump is such a terrible negotiator, he could not have done either. He couldn't do either. We saw that he couldn't do either. Fair and reciprocal trade deal. Make Trump tax cuts permanent and no tax on tips. Whenever I think of Trump tax cuts, I think of tax cuts for the largest corporations. Is that what he's talking about? Republicans will make permanent the provisions of the Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that doubled the standard deduction, expanded the child tax credit, and spurred economic growth for all Americans. Biden has tried to expand the child tax credit multiple times and they have not let him. There's no shot they're doing any of this. Again, this is to moderate from Project 2025. They're putting this out there so that Trump can play defense, or he can be like, no, I have nothing to do with Project 2025, when we know for a fact he is buddy-buddy with the president of the Heritage Foundation, all of the leaders of the Heritage Foundation. Housing affordability, accessible higher education. All of this is BS. People on Twitter were railing on it. I had a few tweets saved. So Heath Mayo said, from the GOP platform, Republicans support tariffs on foreign-made goods. As tariffs go up, taxes on American workers, families, and businesses can come down. This is a lie. As tariffs go up, prices go up, sales taxes go up, and your income taxes won't come down either. They have no clue how economics works, and they prove that every single day. Every single time they talk about massively increasing tariffs while at the same time decreasing taxes, they show that they have no clue how the economy works. These people are just so, every time they say they're defending law and order or they're upholding the Constitution, I can't help but roll my eyes. Oh, Biden is speaking. Let's hit it.
Union.
There we go.
Members of Congress, distinguished guests, welcome. Welcome to the 2024 NATO Summit. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to host you in this milestone year, to look back with pride at all we've achieved and look ahead to our shared future with strength and with resolve. Together, we rebuilt Europe from the ruins of war, held high the torch of liberty during long decades of the Cold War. When former adversaries became fellow democracies, we welcomed them into the alliance. When war broke out in the Balkans, we intervened to restore peace and stop ethnic cleansing. And when the United States was attacked on September 11th, our NATO allies, all of you, stood with us, invoking Article 5 for the first time in NATO history, treating an attack on us as an attack on all of us. A breathtaking display of friendship that the American people will never, ever, ever forget. Through all this history, when great changes occurred, people would ask, can NATO adapt? And every time we proved we could adapt, and we did, evolving our strategy to stay ahead of threats, reaching out to new partners to increase our effectiveness. And here with us today are countries from the Indo-Pacific region. They're here because they have a stake in our success, and we have a stake in theirs. Today, NATO is more powerful than ever, 32 nations strong. For years, Finland and Sweden were among our closest partners. Now they have chosen to officially join NATO, and because of the power and meaning of Article 5 guarantee, that's the reason. It was the most important aspect of the alliance in 1949, and it is still the most important aspect. I'd also note, Finland and Sweden joined the alliance not just because their leaders sought it, because their citizens called for it in overwhelming numbers. Remember, NATO's character is fundamentally democratic, always has been and always must continue to be. And today, NATO is better resourced than it ever has been. I want to pause on this because it's significant. In the year 2020, the year I was elected president, only 9 NATO allies were spending 2% of their defense GDP.